Hi everyone, this is basically a quick video that's going to kind of go through that grammar review worksheet that you have loaded within the forums this week. First, there are a couple of great resources right here. Also, make sure to read through this worksheet at your leisure. Basically though, main tips are note, this is kind of important, that in this course you need to use avoid first, second person in this course. You should stick with third person, and that's generally what you would use in academic writing. Second person should never be used, which is you and your, because it sounds accusatory. It sounds like you're accusing the reader of doing certain things, and it's also really informal. So I really, really, really want you to avoid that. Okay, so the second section goes into comma splices. So I'm going to try to go through this basically quickly with you, a little quickly with you. Okay, so this is a comma splice. You have two complete sentences here. I will run, I will hop. And so that's why this is underlined in green in Word. There are several ways you can fix this. You can add a semicolon. You can add a subordinate conjunction. You can add a coordinating conjunction. Or you can try to combine the two words together. Two sentences together, I mean. Okay, so that's basically how you would fix a run-on, a comma splice. But I do see students doing this a lot where they are connecting two sentences together with only a comma. You can't use that. Another way you could fix it that I didn't mention is you can use a semicolon. A semicolon works like and a comma. And that's a great way to fix run-ons as well. All right? When it says the fanboys, those are coordinate conjunctions for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And those basically work similarly to a semicolon in that it can connect two complete sentences. But you cannot use just a comma. Now, comma splices are also considered run-on sentences. But also run-on sentences could be something like this, where you take two sentences together and you squish them together without any sort of punctuation. That is called a fused sentence. So this is a comma splice. This is a fused sentence. Both of them are run-ons because you're connecting two sentences together without proper punctuation. So that would be a run-on sentence. Note here, this is the fused sentence, and it's connected first with a coordinate conjunction and a comma. The second one, it's connected with a semicolon. And the final way, obviously, would be to break the two parts. Now here, the other thing that you want to avoid is a fragment. Okay, so let's look at this sample fragment that's loaded in this worksheet. Screaming and yelling encouragement to the Hurricanes, meanwhile bellowing obscenities to the Capitals whenever they touched the puck or scored. The problem is, there is no subject here. Who's doing the screaming and yelling? Who's bellowing obscenities? Right? That's not clear. You have to have a subject and a predicate with all of your fragments. So that's what the correction adds. It adds a subject, we. Who's doing the screaming and yelling? We are. And we also bellowed. Okay? So that's important that every sentence has a subject and a predicate. Now this little worksheet doesn't go into this, but I'm sure many of you have heard from your high school English teachers that you shouldn't start sentences with because. And you shouldn't if you end just after the subordinating clause. Because I like to cook. I like to cook. It's a complete sentence. Ooh. However, because it's a subordinate conjunction And when you add because to a sentence, it makes it into a subordinate clause. You have to have a main clause that follows. Because I like to cook. Because I like to cook, I often eat too much. I often eat too much is the independent clause that completes the sentence because I like to cook. You can start sentences with because, but you have to make sure you have a main clause that follows. So this, if you don't have that main clause, that would also be a fragment. This goes into double negatives. That's pretty self-explanatory, so go ahead and read through that at your leisure. Another area that will be discussed is making sure that you have a plural noun going with a plural verb. That means subject-verb agreement. So if you have a singular noun, make sure you have a singular verb. And then during week 4, there will be an extensive comma rules lecture that I'll put out there. But just basically review this at your leisure as well. Let's see, I'm looking through this real fast. Okay, so this is something to remember in future essays. When you discuss an author, for the first mention of an author, and that includes your research, use both the first and last name, but then afterwards you can use the last name of the author. And then make sure that you keep your essays in the appropriate tense. Here, I would think that it's probably best to use present tense. Unless you're writing a historical research paper, then you can use past tense. But whatever you do, make sure you do not shift your tenses, because that can be frustrating to the reader. It's just basically when you do your revisions, just make sure you're keeping your essays in the same tense. Let's see, I'm going through this and see if there's anything interesting. Oh yes, avoid contractions. That's important for formal essays. You don't have to worry about that too much with the speech next week, but I will be checking to make sure that you've avoided contractions because that's informal. Let's see. Make sure you're using the semicolon correctly. There are a couple of semicolon rules, and these are the ones that you mainly probably want to take note of. Let's do 2. All right. So notice that these are 2 sentences connected together with a semicolon, but there's another way you can use a semicolon too. Note that you have these items in a series: cook, dance, sing, and run. But see how it kind of looks awkward because you have this little extra filler part about singing? If you have an item in a series that includes a comma, you need to separate the items with semicolons. So these are the 2 instances where you can use a semicolon to connect 2 complete sentences and to separate items in a series that have commas. All right? Colons are used a little bit differently than commas. Colons can be used to introduce a list, and they can also be used as a definition. So let's see. Right here, though, I'm going to read this sentence out loud and I can explain why it's incorrect. Some of my mother's outstanding attributes are her patience, her love for others, and her outlook on life. Use a colon to list, but not if it breaks a phrase. And right here, you're breaking a phrase. This is correct. My mother has several attributes: her patience, her love for others, and her outlook on life. All right, let's look at this. I like to do the following: cook, dance. I'm going to take out that semicolon because it's a little awkward now. And run. All right? But you wouldn't do this. All right? So that's the way you would use a comma in this situation. Look through this, the word me versus I. Me is a direct object, I is a subject, and this little section explains how you would use I versus me. It's very helpful, so make sure you read that as well. Let's see, I'm trying to just going through this. Spell out acronyms. Don't use acronyms in formal essays. Now, if you're using an acronym over and over again, spell it out the first time and then put the acronym in parentheses after the first time. And then after that, you may use the acronym. Avoid cliches in writing. The reason why is because the way I define a cliche might be different than you, and so you might write a cliche and I might see something completely different than you do. And also, cliches are generally very informal. Using a or an, you use an when the noun and or subject starts with a vowel. And then who is a subject and whom is a preposition, is the direct object. So make sure that you study this as well. Spell numbers that are 1 or 2 words. And I think basically most of this is explained pretty well. This one is another one that students become very confused about. Effect is a verb and effect is a noun. So this is the subject. The effect of the shot will last for hours. So effect is a subject, so that's why you would use effect here. And then the trauma here is the subject. And affect is the verb. Okay, greatly is the adverb describing affect. Okay, so just be aware of that. There, there, and there. This there is a location. Where, over there. And you can also kind of tell because it has the here in there, so it's like a location here, there, everywhere. And then this there is the pronoun, and you can see the I. I is a pronoun, so this there is a pronoun as well. And then this there is they are. All right, and so make sure to read through the lie versus lay. That will help you as well. I don't know if my little lecture here helped you at all. I hope it did. If you have any grammar questions, though, please post them in the forum. I would love to help you. I know this is really quick and basic, but you know, I love grammar. I love talking about it. So feel free to ask me questions or post in the open forum if you have any questions. Good luck on that quiz. Talk to you soon.